It's time for another Nebraska Prep Zone Report, a podcast from the World-Herald. We are sponsored today, as always, by MD West One, Nebraska's most advanced sports medicine, orthopedics, neurosurgery, and spine care, covering Greater Omaha for over 70 years. I'm your host, Jake Anderson. Joining me, as always, Mike Sautter. How are you doing today, Mike?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Doing well today.
We got a rainy day here, but I think it's the perfect time to do our 1-month check-in on fall sports. You've been at a variety of events, and it's probably the weirdest fall season in quite a while. It feels kind of empty with no OPS teams. What's it been like at games?
It's been, different. I guess the first week or two was kind of weird. That first game, that Thursday night game, was Elkhorn South Millard West, and it was really quiet. The Prep West Side game, same thing. And that game normally would be just packed and loud and student sections packed and all that because it's a big rivalry. And it was kind of eerily quiet. But now, I guess this most recent week, they bumped the student sections up to seniors and visiting seniors. Visiting teams can have 100 seniors in the metro, and so that's kind of given a little more environment to it. At first, you could really hear coaches and fans and everything kind of sharing their opinion, I guess, if you will, towards referees and other things, which was kind of funny / interesting. But now I think it's gotten a little bit, more normal. Outside of the metro or, lower classes, they're kind of allowing like normal, if you will. So, or a lot closer to normal with student sections and no limit on fans really and things like that. So, or if the limit's there, it's been, up to so many people in general can show up. So it's been interesting, I guess, for football games. And, volleyball has been a little interesting. And the little bit of volleyball that I've been to, it's been, just kind of fans or family members. And that's kind of really how it is anyway. So I don't think a lot's changed there. Not a lot. The play hasn't changed, right? It hasn't really affected that. Now, a game-winning field goal, stuff like that, if there's student sections or a little more environment, maybe the pressure's a little different. But I think it's been okay. I mean, I'd rather have games going on than not. So if you got to live through, some restrictions as far as who can attend, then that's fine with me.
How do you think quarantine has affected a few teams? Sam McEwen went and saw Creighton Prep this past week to watch A.J. Rollins. He noted that Junior J seems sluggish. What have you seen from that aspect?
I guess I haven't seen a team yet come off of quarantine after like being in it or not, but I would imagine that, you're going to have a little bit of that, right? Just the sluggish or the kind of slower starts. Maybe the first quarter is a little slower than normal. Those sort of things. I guess I would imagine that would happen if teams are coming off of a week where they're not playing or two in a row. So like Prep did. And, Prep started slow against Westside too. That first game, that was 4 or 5 weeks ago now. So maybe that's just kind of them. So that could be something else there. As the season goes on, the more quarantine stuff that happens, we'll see. Bellevue West didn't start slow, and they had a week off, so they started pretty fast, and that didn't seem to affect them at all.
What about team celebrations, sidelines, coaching huddles in softball, volleyball, football? Does it seem more muted this year? It obviously a high increase in people wearing masks, but What's that look like this year?
I don't think it's changed much at all. I don't think really there's been maybe it's not as loud or whatever, but really if there's more people in the stands and more environment, you don't hear it anyway. But I don't think much has changed if anything at all, as far as on the sideline or kids, teammates cheering and stuff like that. I don't think that's changed much. The one thing that has changed is there's no after the game handshake, which a lot of people have commented, well, you're playing against someone in football, right? You're on the field, touching each other, but after the game, you can't give a handshake. It's a little different. And, volleyball, and softball, there's been the kind of just wave at each other like, hey, good game, thank you, bye. So that stuff's a little different. It's also kind of like, does it need to happen, anyway, right? So, yeah.
What do you think, given the way that this fall season has gone, what do you think winter sports will look like? Do you think that they'll be as normal? Do you think they'll need to do anything different for those?
I think they'll be a lot different as far as because it's just inside, right? Not only do you just have the regular flu season, but now you're talking, having games inside, basketball, wrestling, stuff like that. So those winter sports are all indoors, swimming, all that. I think the restrictions will be pretty stiff as far as who can attend games. There's a lot of casual fan that just shows up to basketball games.
Yeah.
And I don't, you're not going to be able to see that in the winter. I would suspect that it'll be really tight, and that'll be the one thing if there isn't student sections, that'll be the one thing. Basketball will be the one thing that student sections really matter a ton, I think, and do play a big difference in basketball, probably more than football, because just the close proximity. I look at a gym like Westside, which is kind of tight, and they can have a big student section and they can get loud and all that. So I look at that as a place that likely is, that'll affect things, right? It'll be a little more of a stale environment. It won't be super kind of energetic and all that. So it'll be on the kids to provide that energy, or the bench players, or it'll be on them or the coaching staffs or coaches to have that energy. One thing that if I just go back to the boys state basketball tournament, you could hear coaches calling out plays every play because it was kind of that stale environment. And I think that'll be kind of neat, and you'll see who scouted who maybe a little better, because if one coach calls a play on the other side, then maybe they switch a defense or call out the play from the opposing team. They just say, hey, this is coming, watch this, stuff like that. So that'll certainly be interesting.
And that's the one thing that's kind of disappointing in all of this. I know we talk about Hunter Salas a ton, but that's the unique thing about having a guy like Hunter Salas in the state is, this is the first time in Nebraska that there's been a top 10 player, and the casual fan to be able to go and watch that guy play for, you get a ticket for $5-10. That's a unique experience that people will miss out on sharing, as well as just the second guy off the bench that, hey, maybe his buddies want to go and watch him play. That there's a lot of stuff about this that is just disappointing.
Yeah, you just look at last year alone at Millard North. They had multiple games that were sold out where they had to shut the doors and told people they couldn't come in, or it was really close if it wasn't. When I say multiple, probably just about every home game. And that a lot of that was like the little kid going, the dad taking the son or daughter or whatever to watch Millard North play last year, or Bellevue West and Chucky Hepburn, and just going to watch those athletes play because they're just special and different is something that is going to be greatly affected. You're just not going to be able to have that, I don't think, in the winter. And you're not having that right now in the fall as far as football is concerned too. So I think there'll be that's the kind of one thing that stinks the most as a dad and as a parent. I took my daughter to a game last year and she still talks about it. About like, can we get a hot dog and a pizza and go watch basketball game? I mean, it's just, memories and things like that people won't be able to have.
Yeah. Circling back to football here and kind of a 1 month checkpoint, who have been some of the early season standouts?
Yeah, you have there's been, I guess, a lot if you look at it. I mean, guys that we kind of knew were good or going to have a good season. You look at I look at Millard South, and TJ Urbon's had a heck of a year. Basically, all the guys from West Side, Cole Payton's had a different year where he's played multiple positions, and kind of the expectation for him was to be really good and be able to play some safety and some maybe work in at tight end and obviously play quarterback. So those are, I guess, the stereotypical guys that we kind of expected to do well, have done well early, I guess. Bellevue West has only played 2 games, and Keegan Johnson had a heck of a game last Friday night against Millard South, and that's what you expect. You expect that kind of a game from a kid like that, and he did. He showed up and showed out, as they say. So there hasn't been – I don't know. I mean, you look at even lower classes, you look at like Bennington's Tyler LeClaire had a really good start to the year. A guy like Aiden Young at Elkhorn High, running back, defensive backs, had a really good start. Isaac Robinson's in that mix too, as far as guys that you expected to have a good year and are. Both those guys are Elkhorn guys. Someone like trying to think, someone like even Eli Larson at St. Paul, they're 3-1. They lost to Pierce early, and he's had a heck of a year. He's second in the state right now in rushing, and he's an every down guy. So he's a kid that was really good last year and I think they lost in the semis in C2, and now they're in C1, and they're off to a hot start. Heinrich Harburg has had a really good start to the year, minus the St. Paul game was kind of tough. So really just the guys that we expected to be good have been good.
Yeah. What about some under the radar guys, some guys that are popping on the scene that the names that fans don't know but should recognize?
Yeah, I guess starting with quarterback, Lincoln East is Noah Walters. He's just a junior. He has over 1,400 yards passing, and they pass a lot. So, but he's still pretty good. He throws a nice ball. He had a really nice game against Millard North last week, and his go-to or number one receiver is Carter Glenn, who frankly I've known as just more of a basketball player. Throughout his high school career, he's started the last few years at point guard for Lincoln East, and he's over 500 yards receiving. He's had a great start as a receiver. Also played a lot more. I mean, you can't really take statistics and say, okay, well, they play, because teams haven't played a number of games and all that. Like if you look at Bellevue West, if they've played every game, they'd be in the state leaders as far as statistics are concerned. One Bellevue West guy, LJ Richardson, their running back, man, he had a great game against Millard South, and Millard South is a really good team, and LJ made it kind of look easy at times, and he's coming in replacing Jay Ducker. There's a lot of expectation for that position, and he has more than held his own. I would say easily held his own. Another couple of running backs, Christian Meneses from Plattsmouth is over 600 yards and just a bruiser. He's not the biggest guy as far as height, but he's put together really well and has really jump started, I guess, that running game for Plattsmouth. They're undefeated, off to a really nice start for them. Rashad Madden from Ralston. Ralston's 2-2, and he's more of a burner and not sort of a bruiser like Meneses is, but he can really run, and he's fast and has had a nice start. You look at kind of defensively, Papillion Jr. Will Hubert has 10 sacks, and that leads the state. I mean, he has 10 sacks in 4 games, so that's pretty good. He's got some recruiting interest stuff kind of starting to pop, and his teammate, I guess, Luke Lindenmeyer, tight end, he's had a nice start to the year too at Papillion. That game, they play Elkhorn South Friday. I think that's a pretty interesting matchup because both teams have a lot of skill guys and speed and all of that, and how they match up. Ben Warren at Elkhorn South is a really good running back if he's fully healthy. I know he's been dinged up a little bit, so he's gotten some recruiting.
It's one of ours to watch. A matchup in Class A. Number 4 Elkhorn South 3-1, Papio unranked but 2-2. They're probably a little bit better than what their record is. What can we expect from that one?
Well, I think you're going to really see Elkhorn South has the probably the better line and more experienced line. That'll be huge, right? You have Prohaska, Cooper Taylor, Isaac Zadiska that have been now 3-year starters. Being able to establish the run will be huge for Elkhorn South, and they use a mixture of guys, right? So Makai Nelson Douglas, I think, will be back this week after he had to quarantine, and I think he's finally kind of going to go be full go this week, which he's probably their best defender. Not probably. He's their best defender at Elkhorn South. So him and Huber, like I said, will be 2 guys that to keep an eye on in that game. So Tyson Mooney is a guy for Papillion that can, if he gets in space, can take it to the house. He's a nice athlete too. Joey Hylock has been a really good in the kicking game for Papillion, and if it comes down to that or needing a long kick, he can definitely get the job done. And he's a good athlete too. So you look for, can Elkhorn South establish the run with their big line? What can Papillion do to stop the run? And can Papillion move the ball on Elkhorn South? I think they can. It's just going to be a matter of can they convert touchdowns instead of field goals is obviously a thing. Obviously, turnovers is a big deal too. So, little more inexperience at quarterback for Papillion. And Krause, the quarterback at Elkhorn South, is got dinged up in the first game or sick or something like that. In the first game, kind of missed some time. Looks like he's back to full health right now. And he's a really talented guy that I think is a really good athlete, and he should be able to make a pretty big impact for them, and even in the running game too. So we'll see. It should be a good game. It's probably the best game in the Metro if you look at it. Or Millard Weston Prep, I think, is a good game as well.
Yeah, that one isn't on our list, but we can talk about Millard West Prep a little bit. Why don't you break down that one? Give us a quick kind of 30-second synopsis.
Yeah, Prep, fought back, I guess, against Lincoln Southeast. Couldn't kind of come all the way back to get the win on the late game on Friday night. Millard West has had, like they always do, one of the toughest schedules so far in the state. Um, Millard West will just do what they do. They like to run the ball, have a few athletes to get the ball to. A really well coached team. Um, that one's going to be pretty big, I think, as far as playoff seedings and when that comes out and how that comes out, because a lot of it will be head to head and who be who. And both teams are in that, right now it looks like both teams are going to be somewhere in that 6 to 10 range. And that could mean, if you're in the top 8, you get a bye with the playoff time, first round. So, I think a lot of that will matter. And if you get the bye, then you get a home game, all those things. So I think that game will be pretty big as far as the playoff seeding stuff is concerned.
Yeah. Our other Class A matchup to watch: number 7 Kearney, 0-2, traveling to number 2 Bellevue West, coming in 2-0. And we've talked about Bellevue West quite a bit, so let's discuss how it's a bit of a rough start for the Bearcats. 0-2, had some games missed because of quarantine, and then you're jumping right back into a road trip to Bellevue West.
Not the easiest game to come off of quarantine, right? Probably could have or should have beat Lincoln Southeast at the beginning of the year in the first game. Lost through a interception in the red zone in the last kind of minute or whatever. Played West Side, and now they play Bellevue West. So they played in their 3 games that they're, I guess, going to play. They played 3 of the top 5 teams in the state. Kind of a tough schedule. But it's tough. It's a really tough task. Bellevue West played a game last week after missing 2, and kind of got a chance to see against a good opponent in Millard South things they can work on or get better at, things that they know they're good at, right? Like getting Keegan Johnson the ball as much as possible. Maybe they can involve Micah Riley and Caden Helms a little more, and Davon Hall, the freshman, he had 2 catches, and maybe you get him the ball a little more. They know LJ Richardson, like I said, can run the ball. Their defense is really, really good. Kier, their middle linebacker, had a great game last week. And so did Jack McDonald, and CJ Lillenkamp, the safety, had a really big interception late in the game. Tough one for Kearney to come in, especially having not played for 2 weeks. It's going to be a really tough challenge.
Yeah. And our last game here is your Pinnacle Bank game of the week in Class C2. Number 2 David City Aquinas at number 1 Oakland Craig. Both teams come in at 4-0. A good early season test here, and this might be the best game of the week across the state. Yeah,
it certainly is. I think it certainly is. It'll be it might not last very long. The both teams like to run the ball a lot, and I think we'll see very few passing attempts. The cool thing, I guess, in this game is you have Aquinas, who, like I said, loves to run the ball and is really successful at doing so, against 2 really good linebackers that I think really, frankly, any team in the state would like to have, in Mike Brands and Nelson from Oakland Craig. So that'll be which one of those 2 sides of the ball, right? Which kind of stars, if you will. Kyle Napier is a really good athlete for Aquinas, and they use him a bunch of different ways. He's a really good corner, can come up and stop in the run game, but he can play some running back, some receiver. He can be a quarterback too. That'll be, I guess, really, really, really interesting to see how he does against those 2 linebackers from Oakland Craig. They they can run the ball, like I said, really, really well. Michael Andel was a kid that I liked when I saw Aquinas play in week 1 against Newman. He's kind of a bruising type, more of like a fullback. Really, it's just going to come to, obviously it's going to come down to who can run the ball and who can stop the run. I mean, that's basically what it is. It does, which set of stars kind of does better, right? And frankly, Aquinas doesn't have, just one star. They like to share the ball a little bit. So it's, Aquinas is not real big. Neither is Oakland Craig, but those two linebackers / offensive linemen, I guess, are pretty good. Brands plays linebacker and I think offensive tackle. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But sometimes at that level, you need kids to play both ways, and you obviously have to kind of adjust, and you want to put your best football players on the field as much as you can.
Will be a good early season test, kind of playoff game atmosphere for these teams. We'll look forward to your coverage during the game for the Pinnacle Bank game of the week, and any Prep Zones coverage of the rest of the week's action Thursday and Friday night. Until next time, thanks for listening.
As the official team doctors for high school and college teams across Greater Omaha, MD West One Sports Med Doctors can get you back into the game stronger than ever. Meet the Sports Med team at mdwest1.com or call 402-390-4111.